President Russell M. Nelson was a heart surgeon. Elder Dale J. Renlund was a cardiologist. And as Elder Barcelos said in conference over this past weekend, is it time for a heart checkup? Remember that talk that we were given? Now, to have surgeons and cardiologists at the helm, yes, maybe we're due. Do we need an EKG? How am I doing health-wise? And in section 124, the Lord names several saints and lets them know the condition of their heart. Perhaps if we're looking inward, we can decide which of the examples we'll see in section 124 is most like us. We'll start with one that I hope describes us. This is for Hyrum Smith. Verse 15 belongs to him. It says, "Again, verily I say unto you, blessed is my servant Hyrum Smith, for I, the Lord, love him, because of the integrity of his heart, and because he loveth that which is right before me, saith the Lord." If you think about what the Lord said about the young David, that he has a heart like unto mine. What a compliment. To say, can you imagine that? That the Lord is looking at your heart. He's doing this heart health checkup. And he says to you, you know what? Your heart reminds me of my own. We both beat to the same drum, and it's a divine one. Your heart is drawn upward to God and outward to neighbor. Love of God and love of neighbor come naturally to you. Thanks. Way to overcome the natural man, right? To think about what Hyrum is like, and this is a man who was not one whit behind his brother, to borrow that phrase from the Book of Mormon. Someone that Joseph looked up to. Someone, as we'll see in a coming month, the two brothers die side by side. And to see the integrity as the defining characteristic of Hyrum's heart, he loves what I love, the Lord says. He's a man of integrity. If you think about the root of integrity as an integer is a whole number. It's not a fraction. It's not missing a piece or has a little too much. No, it's not neither too much nor too little. It's just right. There it is in the Goldilocks zone. Proving contraries, keeping things in balance. What you see is what you get. There's a man of integrity. I hope that describes me. In fact, I hope it describes me much more than the next person we'll meet. In verse 16 and 17 is John C. Bennett. Now, if you know your history, brace yourself. John C. Bennett is a scoundrel, but he's not that yet. At least not to the point that everybody knows it. He's going to wreak havoc among the saints in Nauvoo. He's going to write an anti-Mormon expose. John C. Bennett is going to cause some problems. But he had the potential to do great good. And Joseph Smith was a trusting person, to a fault at times, just seeing the best in people and hoping the best and willing people to live up to that divine expectation. Well, John C. Bennett did not. And there's some hints of that here. But notice verse 16 and 17, and let's do a heart checkup on Brother Bennett. "Again, let my servant John C. Bennett help you in your labor in sending my word to the kings and people of the earth." He'll be good at that. He's had some experience. He's a man held in high esteem. And so perhaps through his connections, we can send this proclamation out to the world. So that's one thing he needs to do. Help Joseph. The second thing is stand by Joseph. Stand by you, even you, my servant Joseph Smith, in the hour of affliction. So will you do that, John? Now, he proved helpful for a time and then incredibly unhelpful, in fact, harmful. He stood by Joseph for a time and then stood against Joseph. So he's not living up to it's like, I'm seeing some things in your heart. The potential is there. Will you live up to it? Because as he says next, his reward shall not fail if he receive counsel. And for his love he shall be great, for he shall be mine, if he do this, saith the Lord. I have seen the work which he hath done, which I accept, if he continue, and will crown him with blessings and great glory. Now, there's a lot of ifs, and I doubt that John C. Bennett even saw them when this revelation was first given. It was probably not an if in his mind. It was a when, and the when was probably already there. Like, to receive counsel? Of course, I already do that. I'll be accepted if I continue. I'm in this for the long haul. Are you? To think about these ifs. Actually, John C. Bennett here reminds me of James Covell back in section 39 and 40. Now, I know it's been months since we talked about that, but do you remember the way he's described? Here's this minister that decides to join the church. I'm all in. I'm ready to serve. And the Lord says to him, speaking of hearts, in fact, look at section 39, go back to verse 8. The Lord says, thine heart is now right before me at this time. Which sounds amazing if we just take thine heart is right. There's a heart checkup worth holding on to. But did you catch the phrases? Thine heart is now right before me. Well, at this time. Ooh, you mean my heart can change? Yeah, that's why we need regular checkups. He didn't follow through with his commitment. He didn't keep his covenant. And the next revelation, section 40, lets us know his heart was right before me. The heart's a fickle thing. It can change pretty dramatically and pretty quickly. And it did for James Covell. It did for John C. Bennett. I hope it doesn't for us. There were even a few ifs that the Lord dropped as hints to James back in those earlier sections. And it makes me wonder, do I need to reread my patriarchal blessing looking for any if statements? Do I need to wrestle with my own weakness and ask the Lord humbly, what are some ifs I need to be aware of? You know the state of my heart. I'm trying. I'm getting a regular exercise. I'm taking my medicine, whatever is needed. But you see things beyond what I'm aware of. And if there are any ifs that I should guard against, please let me know. Perhaps we already know some. The last person I want to spend a little bit of time on is George Miller. Lyman White gets a few beautiful verses in 18 and 19, but I want to jump to verse 20 to meet George Miller. He was actually a bishop in Nauvoo. Edward Partridge has passed away, and George Miller will be the next bishop, and a wonderful man. But let's take a quick EKG. Let's look at his heart. And in verse 20, the Lord says, again, verily I say unto you, my servant George Miller is without guile. He may be trusted because of the integrity of his heart and for the love which he has to my testimony. I, the Lord, love him. Now, it sounds like George is a lot like Hyrum. I love Hyrum because of his integrity and because his heart's centered on the right things. And same with George. George, you're a man of integrity. That's good qualification for a bishop, right? And also, you love the Lord. You love your testimony, the strength that you have. That when we love our testimony intensely enough to guard it, to protect it, to share it with the world, the Lord loves that about us. That's a heart that is beating strongly, ready to send out its message to the world. Elder Brown from Jamaica was a perfect example of that over the weekend, if you remember his talk. But I also want to wrestle with that phrase, without guile. Chances are you thought of Nathaniel of old. Remember, he's the one that the Lord said of him, there's an Israelite indeed, in whom is no guile. And that's a beautiful thing. Then again, it's a two-edged sword. Without guile means you're totally honest. Again, that goes with integrity. You're completely sincere. You say it how you mean it. But then again, can that lead to some trouble? Are we sometimes honest to the point of being brutally honest? Is my without guile sometimes also reflect without tact? That's a possibility. In fact, when Jesus said, an Israelite in whom there is no guile of Nathaniel, what had Nathaniel just said? When he found out the Messiah had come from Nazareth, he's like, can any good thing come of Nazareth? Now, and then Jesus, well, how about me? That's where I'm from. You picture poor Nathaniel like, yikes, put my foot in my mouth, didn't I? And yet the Lord pays such a beautiful compliment. That's an Israelite in whom there is no guile. You say exactly what you think. Right now, you kind of want to backpedal what you said negatively about my hometown. But you know what? I'm not going to chide you for the weakness. I'll reward you for the strength. You just manifested the tails of the coin. I'll flip it over and show you the heads. You're guileless. And though sometimes that means you're tactless, we'll work on that, Nathaniel. And maybe George is the same kind of person. I guess in some ways, if we see Hyrum, who seemed to be just nothing but good, and John C. Bennett, who had great potential but fell prey to all his ifs, maybe George Miller is a good one to end on, where we have these attributes. We have our heart is what our heart is, and there's pros and cons to it. There's potential strengths and weaknesses. And can we lean in the direction of strength? Can we fully offer our hearts to God and let Him show us ways that we can strengthen them? Though we miss our doctor, President Nelson, may we move forward with an openness to the divine physician himself as he writes prescriptions and gives diagnoses and lets us know exactly how our heart is.